Hey, it's Jeff back with you. We're in the home garden, fall is among us. Garden cleanup has already happened, so what do we do next? A lot of times people will just leave this be for the fall. Well, this is a great time of year to know what is in your soil. If you want good plants in the garden next year, you need to know what's in the soil. You need good soil. So a soil test is going to provide that information for you. It's going to give you things like your levels of phosphorus, potassium. It's going to give you information on your pH and your organic matter. All of those things are very vital to growing good plants. So don't guess and just add lime or add fertilizer or add manure. Take $20 and a little bit of your time and collect some soil samples and get it sent off to a professional lab and get that information. That way you can make plans now for next year. All right, we're getting ready to collect our soil to get it sent off to the lab. Now, there are proper steps on how to do this. So if you go about this and have a poorly collected sample, then you're probably going to get very misleading results. And those good plants that you were hoping for probably aren't going to happen because you're not going to have good soil to grow them in. So make sure you follow the steps and get a good representation of your garden. That way you can ensure next year's crop is going to be amazing. All right, so our first tip is to gather the right tools. It's always best to make sure you have your tools together and ready to go before you start collecting samples. So the ideal tool to use to collect these soil samples is going to be a soil probe, just like this right here. If you don't have that, a shovel, a hand trowel, a pocket knife, those will all work just fine. It's just the soil probe, that's what it's meant for, so it's going to work best. The other thing that you're going to need is going to be a plastic bucket to collect all of your samples and mix together. The reason you want plastic over metal is that the metal could transfer different kind of elements into your soil and could provide you with some misleading information. So the other item that I have here is the actual collection bags that you're going to send off. This just happens to be A&L Great Lakes Lab. I have tons of bags in my office and we hand those out to people quite often. So first step, make sure you have the right tools for the job. All right, so helpful tip number 2 is to actually gather that random sample of your garden. So what you want to do here is go in a zigzag pattern, collect probably 10 to 15 samples. They need to be 6 to 8 inches deep, and that's going to give you that good representation of your garden, because you know as well as I do, different parts of your garden are going to perform better than others. So some areas may lie wet, some areas may be on the dry side, it could be shade affecting that from trees. You just don't know. So you want to get a good representation of that entire garden, so by collecting that random sample, you're going to get that. All right, so our next helpful tip is to actually combine and mix these samples. So you can see here there's a little bit of clumpiness from that soil probe, so I'm just going to break all that down. It's a little bit on the wet side, so I'm also going to let this dry overnight before I put it into my sample bag and send that off to the lab. So what you want to avoid when mixing this is any type of plant tissue. Make sure you get rid of all of that if you didn't clean the garden out. But once you let this dry overnight, fill up your sample bag and send it off to the lab and you'll be good to go. All right, so our last two helpful tips kind of go hand in hand. The first one is to plan ahead. Once you ship these samples off, it's going to take probably 7 to 10 business days before you get those results back. So if you plan on doing something yet this fall, just know that time frame. And then when you do get those results back, sometimes they can be confusing. So if you need help with that, talk to your local extension educator, because they can help you with those results and help you plan for maybe something this fall or early next spring. That way you get those good plants from that good soil. Until next time,